The Possessed House. The old mansion on Hollowbrook Hill was a place spoken of only in whispers, the kind of place that loomed over the town like a silent, watching presence. It was a house that everyone knew, but no one dared to enter. Rumors of the Hollowbrook House had persisted for generations. A cursed place, they said, possessed by something unspeakably evil. Parents warned their children, and as soon as dusk settled, the streets near the hill would be empty, everyone safely indoors. For as long as I could remember, I had been drawn to that mansion. Even as a child, when I barely understood fear, there was something about it that called to me, like an invisible thread pulling me toward it. The stories only heightened my curiosity, even as I felt the unease growing inside me. But it wasn't until years later, when I was well into my 20s, that I found myself standing on the front steps of Hollowbrook House, curiosity finally overpowering fear. It was late autumn, and a strange sense of determination had brought me back to the town I'd once called home. Something about the fog-drenched evenings and the cold, biting wind stirred memories long buried. My mother had warned me against it, pleaded with me to stay away from the mansion. "It's not safe," she had whispered, her voice trembling. "That house, it's been empty for a reason." But I was young, stubborn, and driven by an insatiable need to see for myself. I laughed off her fears, chalking them up to old superstition. My mother's words lingered, though, as I pushed open the iron gates that creaked ominously, as if protesting my entrance. The yard was overgrown, wild vines snaking their way up the broken stone pillars. I could feel the weight of the house's dark windows staring down at me, but I pressed on, making my way to the heavy oak door. I took a deep breath and pushed it open, stepping inside. The interior was cloaked in shadows, dust hanging thick in the air. The scent of decay was overwhelming, as if the house itself were rotting from within. I pulled out my flashlight and took a shaky step forward, the floorboards groaning beneath my feet. My pulse quickened as I moved deeper into the house, each step feeling like a descent into something far darker than I'd anticipated. But it was in the sitting room that I felt the first true wave of terror. There, on the wall, hung a series of portraits, old faded images of the family who had once lived there. The faces were blurred with age, but their eyes seemed to follow me, watching, waiting. A chill ran down my spine as I felt a presence in the room, something unseen yet unmistakably there. And then I heard it, a whisper, so faint I thought I'd imagined it. But as I strained to listen, it grew louder, voices murmuring in the walls, floorboards creaking under invisible footsteps. "You shouldn't have come here." The voice was soft, sorrowful, and yet filled with a chilling malice. My heart pounded as I backed away, the flashlight flickering as if something were draining its life. And then, just as quickly as it had started, the whispering stopped, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. I should have left right then. Every instinct screamed at me to turn around, to run and never look back. But something held me there, a strange compulsion that I couldn't shake. It felt as if the house had sunk its claws into me, pulling me deeper into its darkness. I made my way to the staircase, its steps covered in a thick layer of dust. The portraits on the wall seemed to shift as I passed, their eyes narrowing, mouths curving into faint smirks. At the top of the stairs was a hallway lined with closed doors, each one marked with a faded brass plaque bearing a name. A family had once lived here, a mother, father, and their children, but they had vanished without a trace, leaving the house to fester in silence. I walked to the end of the hall, feeling the temperature drop with each step. My breath came in shallow gasps as I reached a door that seemed different from the others. It was larger, heavier, and had a strange symbol carved into the wood, a spiral, twisting and turning in on itself, almost hypnotic in its design. I felt my hand move as if guided by some unseen force, turning the brass knob and pushing the door open. The room was dark, the only light coming from the faint glow of the moon through a cracked window. Shadows danced on the walls, and I felt a presence there, something ancient and malevolent. My flashlight flickered to life, casting a weak beam across the room. And that's when I saw it. In the corner stood a figure, barely visible in the dim light. It was a woman, or at least something resembling a woman. Her face was pale and gaunt, her eyes hollow and empty. Her mouth hung open in a silent scream, her fingers twisted and claw-like, reaching toward me. I stumbled back, nearly dropping the flashlight as the figure moved forward, gliding soundlessly across the floor. Her eyes locked onto mine, and I felt a wave of despair wash over me, a suffocating darkness that seemed to wrap around my very soul. She spoke, her voice a rasping whisper that seemed to echo through the room. "You came for me." I shook my head, trying to find my voice, but no words came. My body was frozen in place, trapped by her gaze. And then she was upon me, her icy fingers digging into my skin as a horrific vision filled my mind. I saw the house as it had once been, filled with life and laughter. But something was wrong. The family was gathered around the dining table, their faces pale and expressionless. I watched in horror as they began to turn on each other, eyes filled with hatred and madness. They tore at each other, flesh and bone splintering under their nails, blood staining the walls. And then, one by one, they fell, their bodies slumping to the floor as the house itself seemed to come alive, consuming them, their souls merging with its walls. The woman's face twisted into a grotesque smile as she whispered, "We are bound here. By him, by the darkness that dwells within these walls. And now, you are bound too." I don't remember how I escaped. My next memory is of running down the hill, the house looming behind me like a dark silhouette, its windows glowing faintly in the moonlight. I stumbled down the road, my mind reeling from the terror I'd witnessed, unable to comprehend what I had seen. I tried to move on, to forget the horrors of Hollowbrook House, but the memories haunted me, creeping into my dreams, twisting my reality. I began to see faces in the mirrors, figures moving in the shadows of my home. Whispers filled my nights, voices calling me back to the mansion. And then one night, the dream stopped. I woke in a cold sweat, feeling an unbearable silence around me. I knew what I had to do. It was as if the house had marked me, calling me back to fulfill some dark, twisted destiny. The journey back to Hollowbrook Hill was a blur, my mind numb with fear and resignation. The mansion loomed in the distance, waiting, its windows dark and hollow. I pushed open the front door, stepping inside without hesitation, feeling the familiar chill settle over me. The voices started again, soft and sorrowful, filling the air with a sense of despair. But this time, there was something different, a sense of expectation, a dark anticipation that sent shivers down my spine. I made my way to the basement, feeling an unseen force guiding me, drawing me deeper into the heart of the house. The air grew colder, the shadows thickening around me as I descended the narrow staircase. At the bottom of the stairs, I found a door, old and rotting, its wood splintered and decayed. I pushed it open, stepping into a small, cramped room filled with the scent of damp earth and decay. In the center of the room was a figure, its face hidden in shadow. It was the woman from my visions, her eyes filled with a sorrow so deep it seemed to echo through my very soul. She reached out, her fingers brushing against my skin, and I felt a coldness seep into me, filling me with a darkness that seemed to devour my thoughts, my memories, my very essence. And then I was her. I was bound to the house, a silent watcher trapped within its walls, my soul forever entwined with its dark, twisted spirit. I could feel the presence of the others, their despair mingling with mine, our voices merging into a cacophony of sorrow and hatred. And now we wait, bound to the mansion, forever haunted, forever haunting, our souls trapped in the darkness of Hollowbrook House. And if you're ever drawn to the old mansion on the hill, if you feel that invisible pull luring you in, remember this: once you step inside, there is no escape. For Hollowbrook House hungers for souls, and it's always waiting for its next visitor.